Time for markets now, and USDA's annual forecast for spring planting was released. We'll check out some of the highlights. Trade negotiations, they're continuing with China, and we always hear how soybeans are the big loser in trade talks, but our analyst this week says wheat can be impacted too. We'll get his thoughts right now. We're joined now by Dr. Frayne Olson for this week's market report. He's with North Dakota State University Extension, serving as a crops economist and marketing specialist. Frayne, thanks for being here this week.
Thank you. I appreciate the invitation.
And the big story we're covering on Market Journal the last couple weeks has been the terrible flooding. So if you could give us a sense of what it's been like for farmers in North Dakota, where you are.
Well, actually, we're a little bit behind you guys. One of the reasons you've had such issues, of course, is not only the snowpack, but the warmer weather and the rain showers. And fortunately, from our end, we've been missing most of that. So the spring melt that we've had so far has been almost ideal. We've had daytime temperatures in the upper 30s, lower 40s. We've had nighttime temperatures in the 20s. So it's been basically ideal. We get melting during the day, it cools down and freezes again at night. So the snow melt so far has been very, almost ideal. We are still looking at some flooding conditions, especially in the eastern portion of the state, but the forecast for the flood levels are coming downwards now. So it looks like it's going to be a much easier spring than we had first anticipated.
And USDA released its annual forecast for spring planting season at the end of March. I guess my first question would have to be, given the flooding, can we even rely on this report to be very accurate?
Well, that's a great question. In fact, I'm getting a lot of those kinds of questions from farmers here in North Dakota as well. So the survey was taken in the first part of March. We just got the report from that. Obviously, the survey was taken long before we knew of the flooding and the issues that we're facing right now. Although I do think a lot of farmers did realize, especially in your area as well as we get into central Iowa, that the soil conditions were very wet. We had a tough time getting the crop out of the field. I think there was some expectation we may have some planting delays. Obviously, flooding has complicated that. So I do know the market is trying to adjust for that, saying, anticipate, well, what does this all mean? Are we going to have some planting delays? If we do have planting delays, does that mean that we're going to slightly cut back on corn acres and increase soybean acres? Or are we simply going to shift varieties of corn and look at some shorter season choices rather than the longer season varieties? So still a lot of questions. I think a lot of that will depend heavily on the spring weather. Planting conditions, we're going to be watching the planting progress numbers very closely as we move through the spring's work and trying to get a better read on how do we adjust those planted acreage expectations.
Gotcha. And Frayne, before the flooding, lots of folks were getting their marketing plan, risk management plans in order. What's the biggest way the flooding has changed these plans?
Well, okay, so I think there's a couple pieces to that. First, of course, for those that have had some flooding, the issue is, are we going to have some bins that are starting to show some stress because of the higher water levels? The other issue, of course, is transportation and logistics, being able to get it from the farm into town. And that's not only just the roads, but it's also the railroads. I know there have been some rail bridges that have gone out. So logistics are getting to be a real big issue. Even flooding on the Missouri and the Mississippi River are causing some issues for the barge traffic. Now, hopefully those are all temporary, that over time we'll get those repaired and fixed and that things will settle down and become more normal again. But I do think the timing of this is going to be important. Obviously, again, with the planting intentions report or prospective plantings report, we got the bigger shift into corn caused corn prices to decrease, which I think is now adjusting some farmers' expectations on what's a good pricing level to be able to sell some more corn. I do anticipate as we move into spring's work that we will get some volatility back into the marketplace. We're going to be watching, again, planting progress reports very closely. I do think there's going to be some opportunities to be able to get some higher levels. However, they're not going to last very long. These are going to be very short-lived. And so please be ready and take advantage of those when they occur. And obviously the other thing kind of sitting in the background right now is all the trade and the trade negotiations going on. Are we going to get a deal? When will that deal become signed? And then also what are the longer term implications?
Yeah, and sticking with trade, a lot of times we focus on the soybean market with that, but I've read that you've said that wheat could also be impacted here. Why is that?
Well, okay, so, and I'm going to talk specifically now about the negotiations going on with China. One of the things that China has promised to do as part of this agreement, once it's been signed, is that they will start purchasing larger quantities of U.S. agricultural products. And usually people jump to the conclusion that means soybeans. But if you listen to the statements coming out of China, it's actually a broad base of commodities. Soybeans is included in that, but corn and DDGs and ethanol and wheat, as well as livestock products like pork, potentially some beef, are also on the list. So I think as we get an agreement, the Chinese start to come in and start purchasing some of these agricultural products, we will see an additional lift into the general market prices we see. May not be a big sharp rally, but I do think we'll see some support with some upward movement. Now, from the wheat standpoint, China is the world's largest producer of wheat. When you look at total wheat production, they're very large consumers of wheat. Typically, they have not purchased a lot of wheat off the world market, but there is an interest in buying some U.S. wheat as well. And so we start adding some wheat sales into the Chinese mix, and all of a sudden that can make a pretty large difference in our ending stocks of the wheat.
Gotcha. Frayne Olson, North Dakota State University, we appreciate your insight. Always good to talk to you. We'll do it again soon.
All right, I would really enjoy it. Thank you very much.